Now, if we would like to move on, and we are now pleased to open the floor for interventions from the other Barents countries, starting with Finland. And we have given the Finland, Russia, and Sweden the headline Barents Railroads Challenges, Bottlenecks and Plans. And Maria, you are representing the Finnish Ministry of Transport and Communications, and you will hold the presentations. So Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm not sure, does my videos?
Yes, we can see your slides.
Oh, yeah, you can see my slides. Thanks to Satu Valkiainen, my colleague is showing them, but my video is probably missing, but let's try again. Okay, maybe it doesn't work anymore.
Okay, this is still the opening picture.
Yeah. So, hello everyone, and greetings also from Finland. Thanks for the interesting presentation so far. It's a pleasure to be here and open a bit also our transport policy and the Barents railroad challenges in Finland. And like I mentioned, Satu helps me with the slides. So please, Satu, could you take the next one? Yeah, I'll start from the politics. Like we all know, the transport policy usually comes from the program of the present government. And Finnish Prime Minister Sanna Marin's government has these 6 most important transport and railway related items. The government will work to ensure that Finland is carbon neutral by 2035 and carbon negative soon after that. Finland will also advance the connection of Finland's transport network to the core network corridors of Trans-European Transport Network, TEN-T. And the amount of rail investments will be increased, like in many other countries, including Norway, as we heard. And the overall development of transport infrastructure will be laid down in the 12-year plan for the national transport system. The government will provide capital to the Nordic Railways Limited in order to launch the rail network development projects and so-called urban development partnerships between the central government and large city regions through land use, housing and transport LHT agreements are continued and made more binding. Next slide, please. First, shortly about the National Transport Plan for the next 12 years. Maybe with pride, I can say that finally we have it. It is the first ever done and presented by Parliamentary Working Group. This plan includes an assessment of the current state and future operating environment of the Finnish transport system, the objectives for the transport system, and the measures for meeting the objectives. National transport system planning will become a continuous process, which makes the development of the Finnish transport system more predictable and effective. A wide impact assessment increases understanding of the effects of developing the transport system, supporting both planning and decision making. It contains a strategic situational picture of the network made by Finnish Transport and Communication Agency in cooperation with the Finnish Transport Infrastructure Agency. It makes the database decision making possible also for the investment program. And the government has approved the plan only 2 weeks ago and submitted it to the Parliament as a report. The main goals of the plans are accessibility. The transport system ensures the accessibility of whole Finland and fulfills the needs of business, working life and housing. Sustainability means that possibilities to choose more sustainable transport modes increase, especially in the city regions. And the third one, socio-economic efficiency of the transport system increases. And Satu, please, the next slide. And then a picture of the Finnish TEN-T networks. how does the new prolongation of the North Sea-Baltic corridor looks like in Finland? And as you can see, almost half of it's located at the Barents area. The prolongation means new possibilities to get financing from the EU. And of course, the studies for the developments of the corridor have been, however, started already years ago. And this new national transport plan emphasized the importance of the TEN-T corridors. Then this next slide, please. Then I will shortly tell you about the ongoing development projects and the projects we have on the planning table. All these projects are managed by the Finnish Transport Infrastructure Agency, the infra manager. But in the future, we also have the new companies who will take care of some investments, the most probably, those project companies. Next slide, please. As you can see in this map, we have 6 development projects marked on blue, which are ongoing on the Barents area. Joensuu rail yard, which is 77 million euros, where the whole rail yard will be renewed and build also the new signaling system for the rail yard. Kontiomäki-Pesiökylä track improvement, 81 million, includes 70 kilometers renewed track and a new timber loading area. Improving the transmission capacity of the Oulu-Kontiomäki track section. That means 4 new passing tracks, and that will increase the capacity of that line. The cost is totally 23 million euros. This is definitely one of the bottlenecks at the area right now. Then a new triangle track in Oulu, Oritkari, which also will help to make traffic more fluent in that area. And it will be done together with the city of Oulu, totally 19 million euros. Rail links to Kemi bioproduct mill. It is a part of the new investment of Metsä Group company, almost 11 million euros. And the Northeast project starting soon in this summer in Oulu-Kemi. Its target is also to improve the transmission capacity and build new passing tracks. It got money, 15 million euros last year, and also CEF funding for the planning already earlier. This is definitely another bottleneck at the moment. Beside these projects on the map, they have other smaller projects ongoing on the Barents region. For example, in Vartius, border crossing point in Kuhmo, the project will improve the track structures, develop the road traffic conditions, and renovate buildings. It will be completed in this year and is funded from the Karelia CBC program. And also other smaller projects, Kontiomäki, Vuokatti renewing, and so far. Okay, the next slide, please. Here we have a list of the biggest ongoing planning project. And as you can see, the most of them are on the new North Sea-Baltic corridor. At the Barents area, we got Oulu-Kemi rail link, where's the needs analysis ongoing. It will be ready next year. And as I mentioned, a part of it, new passing tracks, already got the funding last year. Other important planning project on the area is the electrification of Laurila-Tornio-Haaparanta, the border of Finland, Sweden. The main objective is to enable the cross-border traffic and build the missing part of the electrification. No decision about the construction work, which is about 24 million euros, has not been done yet, but it is mentioned in the government program. And it also has CEF funding for the planning on the Finnish side. And also, like noted at here on the slide, there are other studies ongoing, which are not listed. For example, NABL project, we already heard, which will identify the transport needs of the northern cross-border, including the potential of passenger transport over Vartius. During the winter, there has been the needs analysis also for the connection Tampere-Oulu. The objective was to create a vision for the development of that line. It means double track sections, new bridges, etc. And the project will continue with more detailed planning as a part of this LHT, Land Use, Housing and Transport Agreement with Oulu region. The bottlenecks already identified in the study were the sections Ylivieska-Oulu and Tampere-Seinäjoki. The total length of the line is almost 500 kilometers, and there's single track almost 400 of it. So it is the bottleneck. The next slide, please. And of course, Finland has national plans also for the ERTMS deployment. It's a major project and called DigiRail. The cost estimation is 1.7 billion, and the rollout will take until 2040. At the moment, Finnish Transport Infrastructure Agency has development ongoing, and the test track will be ready in 2 years. I must highlight that its purpose is to implement and test ETC over FRMCS, so Future Railway Mobile Communication System, and radio network to be used will be commercially available LTE or 5G. Of course, there are still many open issues and challenges, but the project is in good spirits, and the dialogue with EU is active. The decision of the project will be done together with the National Transport Plan because it is a big part of it and the basis for the digitalization of the Finnish railways. And then the last slide, please. I mentioned in the beginning that part of the Prime Minister and government's program are the new project companies, which will be one tool to implement large infrastructure projects. Our purpose is to do more and more cooperation with cities, municipalities, business, etc. In this project company puzzle, we have all directions from Helsinki to west, north, and east. And the estimations of the cost of these large investments are about 3 billion for 1 hour train to Turku, about 6 billion to Helsinki-Tampere. This company is called Finland Railway, and East Connection 1.7 billion. These new connections are all located to ScanMed corridor and the North Sea Baltic corridor. The current situation of the company is that last summer our ministry was authorized to establish new companies partly owned by state. And this concerned 2 of those, the Finland Railway and 1 hour train to Turku. And last December, the papers were signed. The purpose of both companies would be to promote the planning until it is ready for the construction. So at the moment, the startup phase is underway. The eastern direction is a little bit behind, and it's now under negotiation. And any decision about the constructions haven't been done yet. So that was all. Thank you for your time and interest. Happy to tell you more now or later, and if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. This is interesting indeed, and I would like to also congratulate you with the first national transport plan, holistic, and I'm sure you will see the benefits of collecting and treating all the transport modes within one frame.
Thank you.
And I would like now to turn to our Russian partners. The Russian railway system is the world's largest regarding all possible parameters. It provides access to the European and Asian networks. And we are very pleased to welcome Mr. Vladislav Gorovchev, expert representing the Institute of Transport Economics and Development of the Russian Railways. He will take us through the presentation on what is going on in the Russian railways related to the Barents region and possibly beyond. The floor is yours.
Спасибо большое за приглашение, Вова. Я представляю Российский отраслевой институт экономики и развития транспорта и хотел бы рассказать о развитии железнодорожной инфраструктуры северо-западного региона России. Так, сейчас попробую демонстрацию экрана сделать. Видно презентацию?
Coming up, Vladislav, so it's looking good.
Существующие мировые геоэкономические реалии обуславливают необходимость комплексного развития наиболее оптимальных с точки зрения сроков доставки и сокращения транспортной составляющей стоимости товаров, маршрутов, связывающих экономические центры евразиатского пространства. Объем взаимной торговли России со странами транспортной зоны BEATA составил в 2020 году 36 миллионов тонн. Из них основной объем приходится на экспорт России в Северную Европу. Это порядка 33 миллионов тонн. В стоимостном выражении объем взаимной торговли составил порядка 13,5 миллиардов долларов, в том числе экспорт России 8,3 миллиарда долларов, импорт России 5,2 миллиарда долларов. Основным торговым партнером России в регионе является Финляндия, на долю которой приходится более 80% объемов торговли. Страны BEATA активно наращивают внешнеторговые связи со странами Восточной Азии, объем которых в 2020 году составил 30 миллионов тонн. По итогам 2020 года общий объем взаимных перевозок грузов по сети РЖД в сообщении со странами BEATA составил 17 миллионов тонн. Из них взаимные перевозки грузов с Финляндии это порядка 15,6 миллионов, с Норвегией это 0,9 миллионов тонн, с Швецией 0,5 миллионов тонн. В настоящее время правительством Российской Федерации проводится работа по синхронизации направлений стратегического развития в смежных отраслевых областях экономики, в частности различных видов транспорта. Ведется активная работа по актуализации транспортной стратегии Российской Федерации до 2035 года, в рамках которой формируется совместная перспективная опорная сеть железнодорожного, автомобильного, речного и авиатранспорта. Также правительством Российской Федерации поставлена задача по актуализации и синхронизации долгосрочной программы развития ОАО РЖД до 2030 года, с учетом изменений в документах стратегического планирования, с обязательным сохранением всех мероприятий, предусмотренных тоже одним из стратегических документов Российской Федерации, комплексным планом модернизации и расширения магистральной инфраструктуры на период до 2024 года. Принимаемые меры направлены на обеспечение пропуска перспективных объемов грузовых и пассажирских переводов, расширение центров экономического роста России и их связи с другими административными центрами Российской Федерации, что в конечном итоге будет способствовать увеличению темпов экономического роста регионов страны, числу рабочих мест и доходов населения. Северо-западный регион. Один из ключевых логистических центров России. Здесь сосредоточено более 35% портовых мощностей страны. Наращивание логистического потенциала северо-западной России, высокий уровень конкурентоспособности региона в рамках укрепления внешнеторговых связей страны позволили обеспечить за последние годы устойчивый рост объемов перевозок грузов в сообщении с морскими портами региона, как представлено на слайде. По итогам 2020 года объемы перевозок грузов железнодорожным транспортом в сообщении с морскими портами северо-западного региона составили 152,5 миллиона тонн. Объемы перевозок грузов железнодорожным транспортом через сухопутные и пограничные пункты пропуска России с Финляндией в 2020 году составили порядка 15,9 миллионов тонн, с ростом порядка 3% к уровню 2019 года. Рост объемов перевозок грузов в сообщении с морскими портами региона в перспективе обуславливается дальнейшим наращиванием логистического потенциала северо-западного региона России за счет развития перевалочных мощностей морских портов и железнодорожных подходов к ним. Увеличение экономической активности в странах-импортерах российских товаров, а также развитие железнодорожной инфраструктуры, предусмотренное стратегическими документами, указанными ранее слайдом, позволит обеспечить провозные способности железнодорожной инфраструктуры региона в 2025 году в размере 170 миллионов тонн, что примерно на 17,5 миллионов тонн выше уровня 2020 года. соответствии с проектом развития и обновления железнодорожной инфраструктуры на подходах к портам северо-западного бассейна в рамках реализации крупных комплексных проектов развития для освоения перспективного грузопотока в сообщении с портами и пограничными переходами северо-западного региона в период с 2021-2025 годов предусматривается следующие инфраструктурные мероприятия. В частности, строительство 250 километров дополнительных главных путей, реконструкция 66 станций, строительство 8 разъездов, а также оборудование 500 километров железнодорожных линий устройствами автоматической блокировки. Реализация вышеуказанных мероприятий по модернизации инфраструктуры железнодорожных участков северо-западного региона России предусмотрена в рамках следующих комплексных подпроектов. В частности, это усиление пропускной способности направления Волхострой-Мурманск, комплексная реконструкция участка Мгак-Гатчина-Вема-Ивангород и железнодорожных подходов к портам на южном берегу Финского залива, строительство вторых железнодорожных путей и электрификация участка Выворг-Приморск-Ермилово, а также развитие направления Дмитров-Санкова-Мга. Что хотелось бы еще сказать, что в целом, с учетом вот этих перечисленных мероприятий, реализация их в дальнейшей перспективе позволит обеспечить беспрепятственный пропуск перспективных грузопотоков и повысить скорость доставки движения грузов в сообщении со странами BEATA. У меня все. Спасибо за внимание.
Thank you very much, Vladimir. Very, very interesting indeed, and I do hope that we can share your presentation together with the other presentations at this webinar. So I will be very pleased if you could let us have access to it. Thank you very much. The time has now come to hear from Sweden about challenges and bottlenecks and plans for the railways in the north. Nils Alm from the Swedish Transport Administration will hold the presentation. But perhaps Anneli will make a small introduction first. So I will leave the floor to you, Anneli.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, good. Yes, and thank you very much for a very, very interesting seminar. Really, an eye-opener in many ways, I think. Well, I just want to mention that the Swedish government has just recently presented a bill on infrastructure in Sweden. And it's actually the biggest investment so far in infrastructure. It will entail 80 billion euro under the period of 2022 to 2033, and this means that we will invest more than 17 more billions euro than the previous planning period. And this includes both existing and new infrastructure, especially on rail. And we will this will allow us for a green start and a model shift after the pandemic. And we are now preparing an assignment to the National Transport Administration to make a new national transport plan that could be approved by the government next year. So I will leave the floor now to Nils. Thank you.
Thank you. And I hope you are able to hear me.
Yes, we hear it good.
Very good. Very good. I will talk a little bit about the railroad challenges and the bottlenecks and plans as today in the northern region of Sweden and in connection to Finland and Norway mostly. Then, as Greta mentioned earlier, we have the joint Barents transport plan that was made in its latest version 2019, where we identified the bottlenecks in the railroad system in the Barents region as follows, with the main bottlenecks being the border crossing of Haparanda-Tornio with different gauge and lack of electrification, the capacity challenges as also mentioned earlier on the iron ore line and the Ofoten line, the iron ore line being old and in dire need of repairs, and also the missing link for the northern part of the Botnian railway route, and also with the existing railway being susceptible for traffic disturbances and lack of alternative routes. I'd also like to remind you that the recommendation from the joint Barents transport plan for these bottlenecks was to further making efforts to find a solution for the efficient transshipment in Haparanda-Tornio to increase the capacity of both the iron ore line and the Ofoten line by increasing the existing crossing stations for the long trains and also increasing the axle load. Renewal of the infrastructure of the iron ore line, and also to take into account the need of improvement of the reliability and to increase the capacity on the northern part of the Botnian railway route. I will like to make some brief statement because this is roughly the same bottlenecks as we are looking into in the coming revision of the National Transport Plan, but there are some circumstances that will affect also the how we look at the bottlenecks. One being the Norwegian National Transport Plan stating that that Narvik-Oslo is an important corridor for 740 meters long trains for container shipments, and that will of course put a huge stress on the capacity situation, mainly on Kiruna-Boden, where we have a lot of short meeting stations that aren't able to handle the long trains, but also from the lines Boden and south. We also are aware that the Norwegian prognosis for 2040 is about 50% higher than the Swedish prognosis in the area of Narvik-Kiruna. If we will look into more and believing in the Norwegian prognosis, we will have higher capacity problems, especially on the line between Kiruna and Boden. And also we have a lot of investments in the industry in the northern parts of Sweden. I think about 100 million euros or so for the upcoming 20 years, and these might also affect transport needs and the capacity needs, mainly on the iron ore line with investments such as LKAB and a new steel plant in Boden and so on. Also, a recommendation in the joint Barents transport is regarding the double track between Kiruna and Narvik. But as we look into it now, we see that there are more important or more other sections that are in more need for capacity investment than the double tracks. That doesn't mean that we don't see the need on a long-term basis. What we are doing now, or already finished, is that we have starting the passenger traffic from Luleå to Haparanda as of the 1st of April, where we built some platforms in Kalix and Haparanda. We are planning together with the Finnish transport agency, Väylä, for the electrification between Kemi and Haparanda. And also signaling system and new platforms on the Finnish tracks in Haparanda to further connect the country's railway system. We are increasing the capacity on the iron ore line, and also I know they are doing the same on the Ofoten line. We have some crossing stations that have been extended to be able to handle 750-meter long strain. And we are actually already allowing 31 tons axle loads for the iron ore trains, both between Gällivare and Luleå, but also Kiruna-Narvik. And I'm not sure if all the permissions are in place, but the first train is about to leave Kiruna, if it hasn't already in the recent days. So it's quite new. We have large investments on the renewal of infrastructure, also with the signaling systems and with the new system ERTMS, and also the construction of the North Bothnian line on the most southern part is ongoing at the moment. As for the plan measures, we are continuing to increase the capacity on the iron ore line with further extending of crossing stations, and also to be able to increase the axle load on Gällivare-Luleå to 32.5 tons axle load. We'll probably be doing more of this also, even if it's not including in this picture, because when we are renewing the track and the infrastructure, as you can see, we are renewing the track and switches on the stretches Boden to Kiruna. We will also be able to handle longer trains. So we do that as a joint project. We are also going to start the building of the northern parts of the North Bothnian line or the rest of the south parts from Umeå to Skellefteå in the upcoming years. And we will also have some smaller measures to allow a smaller number of long trains also from Boden and south on the existing main line. And as Anneli mentioned, we are renewing the national plan. So hopefully there will be more measures to as in answer to the main deficiency and bottlenecks in the Barents area for the railroad. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Nils, for also very, very good overview over what is going to be done on the Swedish rail infrastructure in this region. So we will probably return to some questions afterwards. But now we can open for our last intervention, and this is supposed to cast light upon the broad picture and seek to line up scenarios of where the railroad is going. Stig Nerdal is the expert on transport and logistical issues in the Arctic. He is a private consultant and has contributed to many reports and studies on these subjects during many years. So, Stig, the floor is yours with your perspectives.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the invitation. Perhaps this one.
Yes, it's coming up.
Thank you. The Barents Railways.
But Stig, you also have shared your notes. So if you can try to find.
How can I do that?
The button for the full screen.
Where is the button for the full screen? Can you help me? I don't know where it is.
All right.
I should have.
I think in the upper bar.
On the left.
Yes.
Visningsinställningar.
Yes.
No. It's not that.
Okay. If you try to go in, ta avslutt, og så ta om igjen.
Sånn. Så åpner jeg på nytt.
Ja.
Ja.
Ja, og da kan du også velge på øverste linje en knapp for lysbildeframvisning.
Den der. Det fungerer ikke veldig bra. Kanskje jeg må gå ut igjen. Ja. Jeg åpner presentasjonen på nytt.
Ja.
Share screen. Og så var det den der.
Ja, men da kjører vi. Kjør den du, Stig.
Nei. Vi lar det bare stå der.
You can just proceed with what you have here.
Ikke en problem. Jeg har laget noen sånne her noter. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry for my lack of technical competence.
No, that's okay.
The Barents Railways is a comprehensive concept. I worked with the railways for many years. So during a few minutes, I'm going to give you a few brief examples, a few out of many. Mainly out of a commercial perspective. The Barents Railways are important both out our regional perspective, short transports, but as we heard from, for instance, the port of Narvik, there is also potential to develop Barents Railway as an important section of global east-west transportation routes. This is a map of the entire region. You can see there are links everywhere. To the east, to the west, we have the Northeast Passage. We also included this link to India, which was introduced 11 years ago by the United Nations. So it takes time to bring it up to them today. Railways, as we know, is political vision. It's good for the environment, but if we are going to build or improve railways, we also have to improve commercial competitive advantages. This is Gail Talton from Port of Seattle. Many years ago, she said that cargo is like water. It will take the path of minimum resistance. So if you are not competitive, there will be no cargo on the tracks. This is a very simplified overview of the Barents Railways. If you look at these links, red are standard gauge and black are broad gauge, the different gauges between Norway, Sweden, and the rest of the region. All these red crosses show several missing links. There are different standards, there are different gauges, and also several other differences which is not included in this map. And where there are a lot of missing links, and consequently there will be less effective international east-west connections. If there are no tracks, if there are standards differences, it's complicated to run trains. So we can have two strategies or more. You can have huge investment projects, build a lot of new lines in the Barents region. But we know that there are many missing links. There are many dead ends. There are gauge and different standards. So it's probably not commercially viable to complete all these missing links to build seamless logistical change. So what can we do? We can, of course, there's need for investment, but the main focus for me is to improve existing systems and procedures. So intermodal improvements. You can connect rail by other means if you can do the connection efficiently and cost efficiently. For instance, by truck. You can reduce the cost and improve border crossing procedures. And very important, you can improve the cooperation between the railways, the companies, and the managers. I will give you 3 examples when it comes to improving systems and procedures. The first one is that minor investment can have huge positive impacts. The second is that you should not underestimate the importance of technical innovations, should initiate and support technical innovations. And the third is gauge break. And gauge break between Sweden and Finland can be a minor challenge. I will show you. This is the first example, minor investments, which is also mentioned by Maria from the Finnish ministry on the ongoing planning projects, the lack of electrification between Tornio and Laurila. So there is in principle, an electrified link between Narvik and Far East, but there's only a few kilometers between Tornio and Laurila, which is not electrified. So I'm happy to see that this link is on the planning map of the Finnish ministry. It will give a lower environmental cost because you eliminate the diesel traction, and it will be lower transportation cost because you need less investments in the future. The second example, don't underestimate the importance of technical innovation. This is not an example from the Barents region. It's an example from the US land bridge between East Coast and West Coast from 1984. In 1984, there were capacity challenges on the US land bridge between East and West Coast. Several studies showed capacity challenges, and the US railroads lost money every year. But they did one thing, one single action, allowed the US rails to take a 70% plus market share away from the ships and the tracks. And this is the technology that did it. It was a double stack train. You doubled capacity by introducing this concept. This may be complicated for the Barents region, but the question is, what will be the important technical innovation for the Barents region to improve the railways? Last example is gauge break. As you know, there is a gauge break. There's a gauge difference between Sweden and Finland. This is quite usual in the world. This is a map being made for UIC, the International Union of Railways in Paris. I worked there for some years. You can see different colors at different gauges. It's quite common all over the world. There are 8, 9 main gauges. There are almost 180 in total. So gauge change is a problem because there are some costs involved. It costs time. There are some physical payments. You need some investments. You also increase the risk by damaging goods, and the consequence is the loss of income. And there are several solutions around the world how they can do this. It's transloading by gantry cranes, forklifts, ridge stackers. We can change axles as we do between Kazakhstan and China. We can have gauge change devices as we tried in Haparanda Tornio some years ago. We can also build new railways, which is quite important, quite expensive. But my example is, what can we do? What if we change the market focus? Nobody think about that. So the example is the cost and time consumption related to gauge change is fixed. It's a fixed time per container. It's a fixed cost per container. It's the same if the distance is long or short. And we know that a long distance transport costs more than a short distance transport. And we also know that a long distance transport takes more time than a short distance transport. So what's the consequence? This is the Barents region, including Norway, Poland, Oulu, Far East, Russia, and North America on the west side. If you do a transport between Boden and Oulu, which is quite short, the cost of gauge change, reloading time, etc., may be 25 to 30% of the total cost paid by the customer. It will take approximately 8% of the total transport time. But what if you change the market perspective? Okay, let's build this link, Far East, North America. The cost will be 1% of the total cost. Nobody will care. Time is 0.1% of the total transport time. No one will care. So that's the change of market focus. My last foil is, you can see my notes on the right, so you can read it. When I worked for UIC a few years ago, we had a project in Africa. This guy was a colleague of me, he's from Senegal. The idea was to build a railway link between two different countries, or to improve a railway link between two different countries. When I was sitting on the train, I ended up in nothing. I ended up in this place. I knew on the other side of the border, there were industry, there were factories, there were a lot of people, there were cities. So obviously there should be need for train connections. Then I asked this, my friend from Senegal, why does the tracks end just here? There is a lot of market possibilities on the other side. And he said, "Dear Mr. Stig," this was an email from me, "remember that railways are built on political will. And this political will stops at the border." So also in Barents region, there will probably be a need for political will and political cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stig, for your presentation. And it is not a kind of, it's not a short version of today's webinar, but you were certainly able to lift the perspective and to give some food for thought.
Thank you.
And now this was our last intervention, and now we can spend some time, if we like, to ask questions or raise some reflections, comments. You are most welcome also to reflect on the role of the Barents Corporation in this aspect. And Stig was giving the ball back again to, I think, the steering committee of BEATA, which is representing the national level. And we are planning a transport ministers meeting in October, and would like also input from you and the others to how we could raise cooperation on cross-border railroad transports in Barents to the political level. Let me just see, I will open the chat box, and if there are any questions. I know that Stig has a question to Maria in Finland. Stig.
Yes, and thank you. Just a short question. You probably said it, but I'm not sure. This is an ongoing project or planning project regarding electrification between Tornio and Laurila. Are there any ideas when this section may be completed, electrified.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me or see me?
I can see you and hear you.
Okay, okay. Yeah, the planning is ongoing, and like I mentioned, there's no decision about the construction work yet, but it is written in the government program, and this government will be in charge now 2 years still. So I accept that the decision will come during 2 years, and then the construction work starts. It takes probably 1 year or something like that. So in near future, I would say.
Thank you.
Well, we couldn't hear you when you spoke.
Greta in Narvik, you had one question to Maria. So go ahead, Greta. Or Rune.
It's Rune, yes. I wonder, Maria, when do we get competitiveness by trains system in Finland? I know that in Norway and Sweden we have a lot of competitiveness, but in Finland it's only via cargo. And when can we see other operators on the traffic on rail?
Good question. Unfortunately, can't answer that. There is a kind of open access, but still well, no competition on the personal traffic. Of course, there has competition in cargo trains also. Small companies, mainly working in the eastern Finland. But sorry, no good answer for that.
Thank you, Maria. I see one raised hand. I am not sure what your name is. Oh, you're there, right? I just saw your initials.
This is my university initials, you see.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify when it comes to capacity. This is based on the industries, the feedback from the industry. And we have to understand that, especially from the fishing industry, the slaughteries are working during the day. So we will have a very rough concentration of trains from Narvik during the late part of the day. Meaning, and they're quite long trains, 750 meters. And as also Niels said, the lack of long crossing stations between Kiruna and further south, maybe to Umeå, I don't know. That also leads to disturbances that again leads to changes in transport plans for some of the grocery handlers, and also so it's very important to have flexibility, to have rest capacity in a transport system. Disturbances require additional rail slots for efficient operations of the one who is operating on top of the rail. Yeah.
Thank you, Jörn. Are there other participants who would like to share their thoughts or ask questions? So the moment is now, because we are a little bit ahead of our schedule, and I find that as a good fact.
Paul?
Yes, come on.
I want to repeat a part of what Greta said in the presentation from Narvik. As the joint Barents transport plan was signed the first time in 2013 here in Narvik, it's time to start planning an anniversary in 2023, and we are welcome you to Narvik to have the seminar here again.
That is a very generous offer and tempting as well. So Narvik is indeed a very exciting location to be visiting. I'm very convinced about that. If there are no other questions, I'm now in favor of not holding you more than necessary. So I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the interpreters, first of all, and second, to the International Barents Secretariat, and as of course to all the speakers of today who have made very good and informative presentations. This meeting has been recorded and it will be available at the web pages of the International Barents Secretariat together with all the presentations. So in due time you will be able to find the presentations and the material there. And I am also available if you have questions in the meantime. The steering committee will probably be invited to the next meeting in late May or early June. And the Norwegian presidency will end in October with the next and last webinar, this time on maritime transport. The date is set to be the 14th of October. And also followed by a transport ministerial meeting. So the Norwegian presidency will prepare this webinar now and inform you as soon as we have confirmed the plans and the content of this. And with that, I will wish you a good day and thank you for your active participation. Thank you, everybody.